Okay. Hi guys, welcome back to a new video. Today's video is going to be a monthly reading wrap-up, but because I didn't really talk about the books that I read back in January and February, so I thought it would be fun to compile all those books that I read into this book, because there weren't really enough books for me to actually make a monthly reading wrap-up back in January and February. So we're gonna talk about all the books that I read in the first 3 months of 2024 in this video. And so let's go ahead and get started. I already knocked over the books that I read. So the first book I read was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. You guys already know what this book is about. This is basically, we're gonna read the back of the book because I'm not good at describing the books that I read. So we're just gonna read the back of it. After centuries of sleep, the gods are warring again. Expelled into the middle of a mystical war, magical typewriters in tow, can Iris Minot and Roman Kidd's unlikely bond withstand the fight for the fate of mankind, and most importantly, love? So basically, this book is about Roman and Iris. Iris's brother is missing in the war, and so she writes a letter on a typewriter that she didn't know has a magical element to it. She types out a letter to her brother Forrest, but it ends up getting sent to Roman, who has another typewriter, which is also a magical typewriter. So those two typewriters are connected by magical bonds, and so they can send messages or letters to and fro without the other person actually knowing that it does the magic itself. And so Roman finds Iris and Iris finds Roman, and they, they're both rival journalists for the war cover on what's happening during the war. So that's what happens in this book, and we follow the war and the magic system in it, and Iris and Roman's love story in this book, and it's very epic. I really liked it. The ending got me super shocked, and I'm excited to read the second book. I haven't actually picked it up yet, so I think I might have to pick it up sometime soon. But this book for me is a 4.75 stars. It was a really great read. I loved it, and I'm excited to read the second book. The second book I read this year, and it actually was the first book I read in the month of February, and it is Abby Jimenez's Yours Truly. Again, let's read the back of this book before we dive into what I think about this book. Dr. Brianna's life is seriously flatlining. Her divorce is just about finalized, her brother's running out of time to find a kidney donor, and that promotion she wants, oh, that's probably going to the new man doctor who's already registering 80-7 on Brianna's pain in my ass scale. But just when all systems are set to hate, Dr. Jacob Maddox completely flips the game by sending Brianna a letter. And it's a really good letter. And what's with it? Okay. Like the kind that proves that Jacob isn't actually Satan. Wow. Worse, he might be this fantastically funny and subversively likable guy who's terrible at first impressions, because suddenly he and Brie are exchanging letters, sharing lunch dates in her sock closet, and discussing the merits of freakishly tiny horses. Really? But when Jacob decides to give Brianna the best gift imaginable, a kidney for her brother, she wonders just how she can resist this quietly sexy new doctor, especially when he calls in a favor she can't refuse. Again, in this book, there is a lot of fake dating trope in here, and like everybody has already told you guys a million times, I'm pretty sure you've heard this coming out of everybody who's ever read this book. The anxiety representation in this book, Jacob's character was just phenomenal. It was just very realistic and very, relatable, because I feel like in some certain levels, everybody experiences anxiety. This entire book is just amazing. I really loved it. This is already one of my favorite reads of the year, and I gave this book a 5 stars because I actually really loved the ending of this book. If you guys haven't already picked it up, pick this book up because this is so good. I loved it. The next book that I read, this one is part of a series, and I can say that I finished this book series because this book is the last book in the series, and it is Into the Dark from the Magnolia Park series, and this is the last book in Magnolia and BJ's point of view. So if you guys aren't familiar with the Magnolia Parks universe series, there are 2 different point of views in the series. So there's the Magnolia Parks book, and then there is the Daisy Hates book. So the Magnolia Parks book we follow in Magnolia and BJ's point of view, and then in Daisy Hates book we follow Daisy, Christian, and Julian's point of view in that book. And in this book in particular, this is the last book in Magnolia and BJ's point of view, as I said, and it actually draws out the end of their story together. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I feel like in this book in particular there are a lot of character developments, a lot of grief talked about, and definitely check out. I don't remember where I left off, but again, last book and then Magnolia and BJ's point of view. One of my favorite books definitely in the Magnolia Parks universe series, and this book was a 5-star book for me. But definitely check out trigger warnings, because there's a lot of grief in this book and there's just a couple of other triggering factors, so definitely check out trigger warnings before you read this book. But I loved it, and this is my favorite Magnolia Parks book out of the whole entire series. If you guys have watched my previous videos, you guys know that I haven't really got the chance to read The Great Undoing before I read Into the Dark. And so after finishing Into the Dark, I decided to just go straight on to The Great Undoing, because I just felt like finishing the entire series anyways. And so I read The Great Undoing, and despite what everybody says that they love this book, it really pains me to say that this one is not really my favorite. I love the quotes in this book, but it's just not my favorite book in the series. I think if we were to talk about if I was a Daisy or a Magnolia girl, I'm definitely a Magnolia girl than I am a Daisy girl. So I guess that's kind of what happened to me when I was reading this book. Also, I was very sick when I read this book, so my brain was like halfway shut down when I was reading this book. So yeah. But this book was pretty enjoyable. I'll rate this book a 4.5 stars. I think this book in particular is a really great palate cleanser book, and that is Not Here to Stay Friends by Caitlin Hill. I think this book is very underrated. I don't see a lot of people reading this book, but this is like a really sweet, easy read, palate cleanser type book. It was very fast paced. Basically, the premise of this book is they're two best friends, Liam and Sloan. Liam lives in LA and Sloan lives back in Knoxville, Tennessee. And one summer she goes to visit Liam, whose dad is actually a director for a teen dating show that they're building. Something happened during the production of the show, and so Sloan had to step in and help Liam's dad with the production, and so she lands the role in the reality dating show. I feel like this book is a very fun summer read. I think if you guys are going on vacation, you probably would love to read this kind of book. It's very lighthearted, very easy to get through. I loved it, and I still think about the characters. It was a really great read. It's also YA, and I gave this book a 4 stars. Definitely one of my favorite reads. A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber, which is the last book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. This book in particular is definitely going to be my favorite book out of the series. All Stephanie Garber's books are very lyrical. I think that's just her writing style. Wow, tongue twister. Which is just her writing style, and I appreciate that because I really think that her writing style is just very beautiful and very fitting for a fairy tale-esque type of book, and I really loved it. I feel like a child reading a fairy tale book, and it's just a really great experience. This 3rd book follows the events after the 2nd book, which I cannot really talk about because if I do, I'll just end up spoiling this book for you. And so all I can say is that this book in particular went by very fast for me. Another 5 star. A Curse for True Love and Magnolia Parks Into the Dark is like books in a series, so I do compare it to the books that I read previously before that book, so I could give it 5 stars. So I think that's very subjective towards what my experience is with the previous books in the series. So that's really how I base my 5 stars for a book series. And the last book that I read in the month of March is Heartless by Elsie Silver, which is one of the Chestnut Springs book. And this is the 2nd book in the series. I read the 1st book back in June last year, and now I'm picking up the 2nd book, which is a long time coming, I know. But this book follows Kate, who is Rhett's brother from the first book, and Willa, who is Summer's best friend from the first book. Single dad trope and nanny remind me of the TV show The Nanny. I really loved watching that show when I was younger with my mom, and so this just fits into the vibes. The difference is that they're set in a small town and it's a cowboy romance. That's all there is. And I really enjoyed this book. It was very spicy. There's a lot of pages that I had to skip because of the spice, but nonetheless I just really enjoyed the vibes of this book. I really do enjoy reading the relationship unfold between Kate and Willa, but more specifically I really did like the relationship between Willa and Luke. And reading what Luke, a 5-year-old, I don't even know, do 5-year-olds talk like this, but this felt very different, and it was so cute, absolutely adorable, and I loved it. And I'm gonna have to say that I love this book better than I did the first book, so this one is a 4.5 stars for me. Which concludes all the books that I read in the first 3 months of the year. But before I close out, I do just want to mention that right now I'm currently reading Happily Never After by Lynn Painter, which is one of my favorite authors. When Sophie finds out just before her nuptials that her fiance has cheated yet again, she desperately wants to call it off. But because her future father-in-law is also her dad's cutthroat boss, she can't be the one to do it. Her savior comes in the form of a professional objector whose purpose is to show up at weddings and proclaim the words no couple usually wants to hear at their ceremony: I object. During anti-wedding festivities that night, Sophie learns more about Max, the objector's job. It makes perfect sense to her. He saves people from wasting their lives from hurting each other. He's a modern-day hero, and Sophie wants in. The two love cynics start working together, going from wedding to wedding, and Sophie's having much more fun than she's had in ages. She looks forward to every nerve-wracking ceremony where they save the lovesick souls from the betrothed masses. As Sophie and Mike spend more time together, however, they discover that their physical chemistry is off the charts, leading them to dabble in a little hookup session or two, but it's totally fine because they definitely do not have feelings for each other. Love doesn't exist after all. And then everything changes. A groom-to-be hires Sophie to object, but his fiancée is the woman who broke Max's heart. As Max wrestles with whether he can be a party to his ex getting hurt, Sophie grapples with the sudden realization that she maybe have fallen hard for her partner in crime. And that sounds like fun. I'm predicting a 4 stars from this book, at least a 4 stars, because I feel like this book is so much fun. I love the premise of this book, and so we're just going to go ahead and enjoy reading this book. That is all the books that I read in the first 3 months of the year. Here are all the books that I read in the first 3 months of the year, and so far I did find 3 5-stars read in the first 3 months of the year. And so I'm excited to see what the future holds, because next month Emily Henry's Funny Story comes out. Also Abby Jimenez's Just for the Summer comes out next month as well. I'm also very excited to, just continue the Chestnut Spring series in particular, because I really did love this book. I really want to pick up Powerless, which is the next book in the series. And so stick around for more videos from me, because I will be talking non-stop about these books that I'm very, very excited about. And so that concludes today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys very, very soon in a new one. Bye!